Welcome in, I'm Artris, and this will be the last video for OP11 I'll be doing. Fully transparent, I am over the meta. I am ready to move on to OP12. In the meantime, I want to take about a week or so break, but I figured before we go, why not have a little bit of fun with 50 trigger Arlong. I think that this deck is purely for fun. Don't get me wrong, it's not a competitive deck. This is a deck that if you want to turn your brain off and just enjoy the sim for a little while, I think this is the best deck to do it because you'd never know what you're going to get out of life. It's literally 50 triggers and any of them could be good, any of them could be bad, but I think that's part of the fun here is that you kind of just get what you get, and maybe some games will be a little bit more high-rolly than others, and of course the casino aspect of it's very fun. But before we go over the deck list, if you're new to the channel or are just wanting to stick around for some OP12 coverage, make sure to drop a sub and also give the video a thumbs up. It helps the channel so much. Additionally, if you'd like to talk about the One Piece card game outside of the YouTube comments, make sure to join the Discord community. The link for that is in the description below. So with this leader, he is an old leader from OP3 when we had this interesting alt art version. We haven't had versions like this since, and I know there's a lot of people that really enjoy this kind of art, and I'm very curious as to why we haven't gone back to it. But anyway, I digress. He's a Dawn ×2. When attacking, pay 1 Dawn, play up to 1 character card with a cost of 4 or less with trigger from your hand. And when you have 50 triggers in the deck, you have a lot of options to spit out some bodies. Of course, most of the bodies we have in the deck are 4 cost. We have about 8 cards in total that we can't cheat out with our leader effect, but everything else is game. Starting off, we're running probably one of the newer additions to the deck. I think there's a few OP11, maybe I'm wrong here, but at least for EBO2, we have the 4 cost Buggy. It's a 4 cost 6,000 power counterless card. It says on play, if you do not have another Buggy character in play, up to one of your leaders gains double attack until the end of the turn. And then the trigger says rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. So if you are able to get this in your opening hand, you want to go first because of course your curve, being able to go 2 on your leader and then pay 1 means that you want to be on the odd curve. And so Buggy being able to immediately get you that value when you're swinging 7 on 3 Dawn, you can double attack for 7 and your opponent's already down a couple of life unless they want to counter out, which that will also put them back as well. Next, we're running a playset of Karubi. This is a really good card to be able to bypass blockers. It's an on play if your leader has the East Blue type, rest up to one of your opponent's characters. Doesn't matter the cost, just rest it. And it's a really good trigger as well because if it comes out of life, it's a play this card, so the trigger takes place and you can rest anything on the opponent's side of the field. Then one of the new additions that I mentioned from OP11, we have Lord of the Coast. It's a 4 cost 5,000 power body that says on play up to one of your opponent's rested characters will not become active in your opponent's next refresh phase. And then the trigger says KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 3 or less. I think this is a really important card for the deck because sometimes your opponent will eventually catch up with you because this deck is very explosive. Right from the start, you're going to be hitting for a lot of damage and you're going to be putting your opponent at a low life total. But if they do stabilize and they get bigger bodies out onto the field, you're going to be in some trouble. So being able to suspend those bodies once they have swung will help you at least continue to carry on that momentum going forward. Next up, we have another new addition from OP11, the 7 cost 7,000 power Arlong. If your leader has the Fishman type, you have 3 or less life cards in your area, and your opponent has 5 or more rested cards on their field, this card gains -3 cost while in hand. So it makes it a 4 cost character, meaning that you can cheat this out with your leader effect if you do meet those stipulations, which is very easy to meet because of the fact that you are a 4 life leader. So all you have to do is take 1 hit. And then if your opponent's at 5 Dawn and they use all of their Dawn, you can cheat this out immediately. So this is a really good value card for this deck. And this is one of the harder bodies for people to remove because once it hits the field, it becomes a 7 cost. So there's only a few things that hit 7 costs in the game. And I think getting this out pretty early, or I guess rather a little bit early, will make it so that your opponent has a harder time removing this other than just swinging into it. The trigger, of course, will allow you to rest a 4 or less character. So that's also pretty nice. And then we're running 4 Onami. This is an on play, give up to one of your leaders or characters banish for this turn. This is probably one of the ones that's the most cuttable from the deck, but I do like the fact that you can give your leader banish or like a surprise banish out of nowhere because you can use this on your leader ability so that you can cheat this out and then give your leader banish all in the same turn. The trigger is really important though because it can KO up to one of your opponent's 5 cost or lower characters, so being able to have some removal into the deck is important in my opinion. Then from EBO2, we're running a Jimbei 4 cost 5,000 power 2k counter. The trigger is if your leader has the Merfolk or Fishman type and you have 2 or less life cards, play this card. I had a few options for trigger bodies, and I think this is probably one of the better ones. And I forgot about this one for a little while because of the fact it's just so new. EBO2, we didn't really see this card specifically being played in too many decks, but I believe it's very well suited for Arlong. Even though it is a vanilla, you are hoping to get the trigger, and if not, you can always just cheat it out with your leader ability. Then we have 4 Sanji blocker, very simple from OP04, just being able to trash a card from hand and then play this card. This will help you save yourself in situations where your opponent might be going for lethal. With Sanji on the field, a surprise blocker is always a good thing. Otherwise, you can just play this outright with your leader ability. You can also just, you know, play it without having to die or worrying about dying. And having a body on the field is always very nice, especially if it comes from life. Speaking of characters that come from life, we have Kikunojo, 4-cost 6,000 power body that says on KO, if your opponent's life is 3 or less, place the top card of your deck to the top of your life. This is one of the more pesky characters that your opponent has to deal with because, of course, your board will start to amass with a bunch of smaller characters. They don't want to try to get rid of this one, or they're less inclined to swing into this because they don't want to prolong the game. And when they do, they're putting another trigger in life. Most people are not going to realize that you're running 50 triggers, and when this dies due to, you know, anything, then you're getting that life back and you're getting a trigger from it. So I think that this is really important for the deck. It's probably the best card in the deck in my opinion. And I'll very easily mulligan for this against 4 life leaders so that when I do get that first swing in, this comes out onto the field. Don't have to worry about them being at 3 or less life in order for the on KO ability to happen. So very important here. And then the other thing is we have Neko Mamushi, which is also a trigger body that happens if your opponent has 3 life or less. And this is also very important to be able to get past blockers. At Dawn ×2, this character can also attack your opponent's active characters. You're mostly using this to clear things on the field that an opponent has just played. More than likely, they will be blockers, but you never know. You could swing into things that might be a little bit taller. For the most part, you're wanting to go face with this deck, but Neko Mamushi will help you at least equalize the board in the meantime. Then we're running 2 S-Snakes. I really like this card. I think that this is kind of like a Diablo Jambe for the deck in a sense. If you're able to play this out before your opponent goes down to 0 life, this will bypass blockers with 1 Dawn. So it says Dawn ×1, when attacking, your opponent cannot activate blocker during this battle with this card specifically. So this is a great way to at least go for lethal if you don't have a Kurobi in hand and if they have blockers out on the field. The other thing here is the trigger says you may trash 1 card from your hand if you have 2 or less life cards. Play this card, so make sure you're at 2 or less because you can still trash a card from your hand. It just won't play itself if you're at 3 or above. Then one of the other important pieces to the deck is the 4-cost Basil Hawkins. What's really great here is the on KO is trashing up to one of your opponent's life cards from the top of their life. So your opponent's also not going to want to swing into this. If you have just Hawkins and Kikunojo on the field, you're presenting quite the nightmare scenario for your opponent to have to deal with. Of course, they're probably just going to swing into the Kikunojo and ignore the Hawkins for the game, but I think that this is just going to be a sticky attacker once it hits the field. Then on to the cards we can't cheat out with our leader effect, but have pretty decent triggers overall. We have Satori. This is just a 2k counter that also can come out of life and be a nice little body. And then we have Nami, which is a 5-cost 5,000 power body that on play, trash 1 card with trigger from your hand and then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. Then if you have 3 or less cards in your hand, draw 1 card, and then the triggers just activate this main effect. So you can at least have a couple of ways to KO 5 cost or less on the field between the Nami and the Onami. Of course, with this deck, there are plenty of other triggers you could be running. I, at some point, was running like Noah's Ark just to test it out, and I think it's a really fun card to have, like the possibility to rest everything on the opponent's side of the field come out of life, but it is a little bit too gimmicky, and relying on that to win you games is not consistent. And not that we're trying to like super hardcore win games with this deck, but when you're playing this, you do want to win, right? So this, at least in my opinion, has been, I wouldn't say like the best version of the deck, but it's been one where at least it's consistent enough to get me across the finish line more often than not, and it gives a lot of meta decks trouble that they just don't expect to have trouble with. So like Blue Purple Luffy, you can really run them over if they are just bricked up and you catch them with their pants down. Same thing with like Green Purple Luffy, because of the fact that they're 4 life, you can actually get them to 0 pretty easily and then just close out games by resting blockers or KOing things. So this is actually a pretty decent answer to some meta decks. Not saying it's competitive, please don't mistake me for that, but I do think that this is a fun deck overall, and it's a great way to finish out OP11 in my opinion. So that being said, let's take this deck into the sim and see how it does. All right, going against Green Purple Luffy, I'm going to choose first here. I think I'm just going to mulligan the hand. I think this hand is a little bit better because we can just have a very explosive first turn with Buggy, but I do kind of want to see what we end up getting from our draw, because maybe something will be a little bit better than Buggy. Of course, hitting for 2 life immediately is very powerful, but also Basil Hawkins could be a decent option as well. Of course, Buggy being a 6k base will make it better the longer the game goes on, and also Kikunojo is pretty solid too. So maybe we just go 7. Maybe we bring out the Kikunojo, just get that online, and then maybe use the Buggy for when we're Maybe they're at 2 life, because usually green purple likes to stabilize around 2, and if they're at 2 and we just do one big swing with the buggy, we can get them to 0, and then they have to play on the back foot from there. So maybe that's our game plan. Here they're just going to swing 6. It's fine, we'll take this, and S Shark is not able to be played because we're not at 2 or less life, so let's just hold that in hand. This could also be good if they do establish some blockers. Here, let's just swing 7 because they are a 5k leader right now, so this will make it awkward for them. And if they take this, then we can play out the buggy. We can also just play out Kikunojo as well, but buggy might be better. I think Kikunojo's fine here. Let's just swing 8, see if they take it. Usually they're just going to give us 2 Oh, they actually take it. Maybe we should have played out the buggy. Maybe playing the buggy would have been a better option there. That might have been a small misplay, but it's okay. Double Kikunojo is also really good because it's very annoying for them to have to deal with. Okay, Sanji and Pudding coming down. As expected on curve. And then I believe from here they might go like Zoro Juro. The 4 cost. Okay, no, they have Chopper just to stabilize with a blocker. And that's fine. We actually have a couple of ways to get rid of this. We can rest it with the Kurobi. Okay, swing 5. I think we just give them a counter here because we don't want to take 2 hits this turn. I think just taking 1 is fine. The other option we have is to play out the S Shark, and if they establish a blocker again, because usually they're just going to snap block on the first hit, so it doesn't matter what we swing with. Okay, so they play Going Merry. Got it. Cool. And swinging 6, we'll just take this one. Oh, Onami, they didn't even, oh no. If they put the Going Merry on the Sanji and Pudding, I'd probably just use it on the Chopper, but oh no, unfortunate. And they just fold after that. But let's see, would we have been able to get through? I mean, we would have pressured them really hard this next turn where they would have had to use Gum Gum Giant. Yeah, and then they'd have to give us a lot of counter. We would be in a really good position, and then the Arlong coming out of life. Yeah, I think we probably would have had that. Purple Katakuri here, I want to take first. As usual, I think this is a pretty solid hand. We have Buggy in hand, along with maybe like Sanji, Lord of the Coast, Arlong. We have a pretty good hand for the later game. The buggy, of course, is probably our best opening move, unless, of course, they put a blocker down, but they've already spent 1 Dawn, so they're not going to put a blocker. At least a Nana won't be a blocker for them until now that they have a purple character on the field. I think here, it's just a clear, unless we get something really interesting off the top. Ooh, actually, Basil Hawkins is not bad. Basil Hawkins could be a good addition here. I don't want to just immediately give them 2 cards. That's why I'm not playing Buggy just outright, but it is a really good play. I think we want to use Buggy strategically to really push them at times where it might be awkward for them. So I think that's probably our best bet. Okay, so they're swinging 6 here. The Charlotte Pudding's really good to get their leader ability online. We do have this Buggy. Are we going to use it to rest the Pudding? Are we ever swinging into the Pudding? I don't think so. A Nana to come down. There's the... Oh, now we can't really do the double attack because that means it's going to be an instant swing. So let's just swing 7 here, see what they do. If they block, then we'll use the Buggy. If they don't block, we'll just bring out a Sanji. They block. So we're just going to play out Buggy here and get the double attack going. They do get to use their leader ability if they want to, and then that means their leader's a 6k minus a Dawn, and then they have to give us a 2k. But that also puts them back a little bit, which is kind of awkward. It puts them on an even curve, which is probably not the worst thing for them because they do have Pair of Sparrow, the 5 cost that they could play, but I don't think they want to do that, but I think they're going to have to. Okay, it makes sense because they don't want to take 2 hits here. I get it. Giving me a 2k, and that's fine. They're at 5 Dawn, so this could be a Pair of Sparrow, which would be their best curve, of course, and they would have played this anyway if they were on 6 Dawn, so I think it's fine for them to use their leader ability there. It's usually a little bit preemptive to swing right there and use their leader ability, but it's fine. Here they're just going to swing. Oh, they're swinging at the Hawkins. Interestingly enough, I'm going to let this one go because I'm just going to trash the life, and we got a trigger off of their life, so they didn't get that draw, which is really nice to see, of course. It's 1 less card in hand, and they're going to use their Pair of Sparrow ability to see what I have at the top, declare it, and then trash a card, and then put out a blocker. All right, onto my turn. I drew a Satori here. I think I'm just going to swing 6 with the Buggy, and then I'm going to swing 7 with my leader. I'm not going to use the leader ability because their board is pretty... The only threat on here is Pair of Sparrow, and it's a 5 cost, and I have a Nami in hand. So I think it's best to use the Nami and get rid of the Pair of Sparrow, even if it means not using my leader ability this turn, because this turn would have been perfect. We could have played a 4 cost and also cheat out another 4 cost with leader ability, but we'll just do 7 here. They block, and then we're going to play out the Nami. I think we can toss... I don't want to get rid of the Buggy in case they swing at the Buggy and get rid of it, because then that way the backup Buggy will also give me double attack. 2 Buggies in hand is not great because, of course, when one of the Buggies is on the field, the other one, if it comes out, doesn't give you double attack. Only one of them gives you double attack. If you have another buggy already established, it doesn't do that. So they get rid of this buggy, I think, or at least if they swing into the buggy, we're just going to let it go. 8 and a 6, we're just going to let this one go, and then we'll have this buggy in our hand as a backup double attacker, which I think it makes the most sense to just go ahead and play this. Okay, so they're establishing this Katakuri. I'm assuming that they have like the 8 cost. I'm at 7 Dawn right now, so they can't use the effect, of course. 7 and a 5, we'll take it, and the Jinbei will be able to be played off of this. Really nice to see here. Another buggy is not exactly what we want. Wish I had another counter, or at least something a little bit better here. Let's just go 7 into lead and play out this buggy. 8 into lead probably would have been a better math because of the fact that they can still use their leader ability. Give me a 2K, but of course that means they're minusing Dawn again, which is not great for them. But if they have an 8 cost in hand, they probably don't care. They are just going to take the double attack, which makes sense because they are pretty starved for cards here. I think we just go 8. Since they took the 7, we'll see if they take 8-8. They take the 8. They get 2 2Ks, or are they dead? It feels like they're just taking these pretty nonchalantly. I'm so worried about them in a way. I don't know. Why am I worried about the opponent? They didn't have it? Oh my gosh. Yeah, they had a lot of 8 cost. We'll give a GG to the opponent. That was tough because they just didn't see counter at the end, but that's kind of what Arlong does, put pressure on you. All right, blue-purple Luffy here. I think that we have to rush this leader down because if the game goes past a certain amount of time, they just win. It's just like we can't outlast them. They just have too much longevity. They have too much healing. They have a lot of blockers. This hand is pretty good though. We have Kikunojo, which is going to be a nuisance for Luffy. If they swing into it, if they get rid of it, it means that we heal and prolong the game just a little bit in order to stay alive, maybe long enough. But we really need to put the pressure on. I think Hawkins is also pretty good too. So yeah, we'll see what they do. All right, opponent is finally awake. They drew their Dawn and they pass the turn, pass it right back. And then next turn we can swing 8, which actually going second is pretty decent against Luffy because if we're going first, we're only swinging like 7s or 9s, really awkward. Kurobi, wish we had that for like last life or something, but oh well. Here we're just going to swing 8 into lead and we're going to bring out the Kikunojo so that we get a free swing every turn with this. Of course, they're going to take it. That means 2 and a 1 otherwise. And this is why second is so good because you can swing 8, you can swing 10, you can swing 12, and it's really hard for them to counter out of all of that. So yeah, I actually don't mind second in this matchup because of the 6k body or 6k leader. This turn could be a couple of things. Usually on 5, they have either a kill spell with the 5 cost purple, I forget what it's called, but the 5 God Threat, thank you. And then they also have Nami, which I would have preferred them to play Nami. I want a body on the field, of course. Arlong doesn't rest anything because there's nothing on the field. That's fine. But what we can do is we can swing really big here. We can just kind of turn our brain off, swing 10, and we'll cheat out this Arlong. Arlong is going to be harder for them to answer. Because of the fact that Arlong is a 7 cost now that it's on the field, they can only answer this with Mihawk or Red Rock, and I don't think they want to use a Red Rock. There's nothing else in the deck that they really want to use Red Rock on anyway, so I think it's fine if they would use a Red Rock here just to remove it, but feels like a waste for them. So I think doing anything else besides Red Rock is probably fine. Here, what they might do is they are on 8 Dawn, so they could play Katakuri, the 8 cost blocker, and then just swing 6 and pass. If that's the case, that's totally fine here. We like to see that. 6 and a 5 will take it, and a Kikunojo trigger. Love to see that. That is great. We want that trigger for sure. The more bodies we can get from life in this matchup, the better. It just means more cards out of hand at the end of the day. Here, we're just going to swing 8. We're going to swing good numbers if we can. I'm thinking we might do a Kurobi Lord of the Coast play where we swing in, we rest the blocker, and then we keep it tapped down. I'm kind of wanting them to... I don't want to use the Kurobi, though. I want them to just block outright. I want them to actually like use the block and then be able... There we go. Perfect. They're blocking. Give it 1k. That's fine. What we'll end up doing is we'll swing 8 into lead. And then what we can do is we can swing... Actually, 9 is not a great number, but it's better than nothing. So let's go ahead and just swing 9 into lead, and then we'll play out Lord of the Coast and tap down this Katakuri so that it can't swing the next turn. And they have to give us 2 2Ks here, which is really awkward. They don't have any... Wow. They didn't have anything. They had 1 2K counter. They had the Gear 2 from life, but wow. They had the rest of the game set up. They just didn't get there. And Arlong sometimes just beats you before you get to turn 5. Wow, that's insane. All right, going against Shanks, this is going to be one of our harder matchups because Shanks is a 5 life leader and can make my leader a 6k swing at least on the first one. Kind of annoying. Or I guess because I'm swinging 8, it's a little bit harder. But anyway, yeah, we're going to have to take this. Ooh, this is a rush variant of Shanks. I don't want to take 2 life in the same turn. And the fact that they're at 5 life means that our 3 life triggers don't really go off. I don't want to swing at the Zorojuro. I just kind of want to race here. We'll put Buggy out and then give a double attack to our leader. Meaning that they have to give us leader ability plus a 2 and a 1. Going down to 3 cards in hand is not necessarily where you want to be this early in the game. But I think overall, yeah, they just take it, and I don't blame them. I do the same thing if I was Shanks. Yeah, here they're just going to race. Looks like they're just going face here for 5. We'll take it, get the Jinbei out of life. If they decide to swing 7, we'll take this one as well. Nekomamushi, another body out of life. The race is on, folks. This is looking pretty good because of the amount of triggers we're getting. Shiraya coming out, that is interesting because it means our leader effect, or leader attack rather, is going to be matched with the Shiraya. So we do have a Nekomamushi to be able to attack into it, which is nice. We'll give them the opportunity to use the blocker first. So let's swing 6 into 5, meaning they have to give us a leader ability plus 1k or just a 2k outright. They take it. Here, we'll just swing 6. Good numbers overall against Shanks. Shanks, you just want to swing 1 above until they use their leader ability, and then you can swing straight at them. 7 into 4 because of the Shiraya. I don't want that just to match my leader and then be able to like give a 1k. Here, we're just going to put out a blocker. Actually, Kikunojo is better because we can keep the blocker in hand because it's a 1k counter in case they decide to pressure game here. But it'd be really bold of them to go for a game. We have a really sizable board here. It's looking really good. Okay, so new gate coming down means that they're not going to pressure game. They get rid of the Nekomamushi. That's fine. And they just concede. Do they not have enough? So if they went 6 at any of the bodies, we could protect it. If they went 5 at the bodies, we'd protect it. We had a trigger come out of life. They had 2 2Ks and a 1K. Yeah, I think we just got across if that was the case. Wow. Opponents are just like folding left and right tonight. What the heck? Lucci, I'm going to take first. I want to be as aggressive as possible, and I think this hand is fine. Unfortunately, Kikunojo could be a victim of dying before they get to 3 life, so we don't get the heal. But let's just try to pressure as much as we can. Ooh, Onami's pretty good here. Actually, I kind of want to play Onami instead. Cheat out the Onami, get the banish going so that they don't get the card from life. I think that's probably fine. And even then, I don't think that Lucci cares about the banish because they end up having stuff in their life, or they have stuff go to trash anyway, so I think that's fine. This one, they're probably thinking about giving a 2 and a 1 though, because like honestly, losing the first life, it feels bad. It feels bad, even if you are a deck that likes to play with your trash. You never want that first life to go into the trash, but they let it go. It's a who's who, which would have been a nice trigger to KO, at least the Onami, if it wasn't a banish effect. Let's see if we could take the 5 here. Maybe we just take it. Yeah, we just take it. Okay, Nami, I'm thinking about like countering out because if we counter out and we get them to 3 life, then we can start taking life because of the triggers. It's fine. Let's just swing really big here. 9 into 5. They'll likely take this one as well. Getting the Kikunojo out means that if they decide to KO the Kikunojo, we get the value from it in return, which is nice. Very nice here. And of course, they're probably going to use Laboon, I would imagine. Swinging 5 into lead. There could be a trigger that gets rid of the Laboon. It's a rest trigger. Thank God. Okay, so we're going to just rest the Laboon so that they can't use the rest effect to -4 to anything on the field. We can actually keep it locked down this next turn as well with the Lord of the Coast. They just play who's who, like pitching a card. So that's another 2k out of hand, and we get to heal off of that, which is really good because now we have another trigger ready to go. Let's just swing 7 into lead, freezing the Laboon, and then we'll play out a Kikunojo for the other 4 Dawn. And then here, I feel like we're kind of in a race. If they establish any blockers, we could be in a little bit of trouble because I don't think the the S-Shark rather, is going to... Sanji trigger's so good. Let's go ahead and just pitch out the Nami, keeping 1 in hand. The S-Shark is not going to be one that is going to stay on the field very long, if that's the case. I think I said S-Snake in the beginning of the video. I can't remember. Oh, gosh. Forgive me if I did. 6 into 5 here. That is fine. We'll take this one as well. Another another Sanji trigger. We'll pitch out the Arlong just because like we don't need the Arlong, I suppose. We'll use the Jack, KO the Lord of the Coast. And now we just kind of press for game, I think. We kind of race him a little bit if we can. We'll go 7 into lead. This is I think 7s are good numbers into Lucci overall. Here, we'll do another 7, but we will cheat out the Onami, doing another banish. Well, they have to counter out of this one. If they don't, they just lose, right? Oh, they just lose. I guess they take it. Let's just do Sanji. I was thinking about keeping the blockers up, but I think it's just better just to be aggressive here. They didn't even... Oh my god, they had 1k counter in hand. My opponents are so bricked up tonight. I picked our good night to play Arlong. I was really blown away by just like how fast some of the games were. I know that opponents kind of like left in the middle of games, but the fact that some of them left because they just lost at that moment in time is very telling just how like explosive this deck can be. I don't think this deck is going to do well against like more of the longer, grindier decks, like maybe Lucci, although we did play Lucci and they just kind of folded because they didn't have counter in hand, but like Rebecca or things that can like stabilize with lots of blockers. Blue-purple Luffy, the longer the game goes on, can be an issue, of course, but man, we really just ran over a lot of opponents with the fact that they just didn't have counter at times and we called them out on it. So I really think Arlong could be fun to just take to a locals and maybe terrorize some people if that's the case. Maybe you're that kind of person and enjoy ruining people's days. Arlong might be the deck for you. I don't know. So anyway, I am super curious what you guys think about this deck list. Now, obviously, outside of the triggers, you might want to build this if you're taking it more seriously with like Hody Jones and things like that in between. But outside of this, what triggers do you think belong in the deck outside of what I put into it? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.